This is not a kitten video. It's not a puppy video. That's not what it's supposed to be. This is not something you just kind of watch on the fly. That's not how faith works. Faith involves, if you want to go deeper in faith, you have to be open to God, not on the fly. So here's my encouragement. Go to a place where you can listen deeply. Go to a place where you can write a few notes down. What is the Lord asking of you? Prayer or receiving things from the Lord involves giving him time and attention and even pondering it more deeply, like Mary did. She pondered all things in her heart. So welcome today in a special way. I'm just welcome you that this truly is not some kitten video. Most of the time when our modern ears hear the words, blessed are the pure of heart, we may be quick to think Jesus must be talking about people like don't lust, but we're called to be chaste and pure of heart. And yet, frankly, that wasn't the primary understanding of the Beatitude for most of church history. What does it mean to be pure of heart, and why are they blessed? So today I'd like to reflect a little bit more specifically on 3 understandings of the Beatitudes. And for my preparation in prayer, I was inspired by Father Raniero Candelamesa's chapter on this Beatitude from his book, 8 Steps to Heaven. You see, there's been plenty of ways of reflected on what does it mean to be pure of heart. I'd like to focus on 3, and they have to do with other ways we've described this Beatitude. The first is this, blessed are the pure of heart. The second is, blessed are the single-hearted. And the third is, blessed are the clean-hearted. So you can see the 3. Let's kind of unpack those so we can see what does it mean to be pure of heart or single-hearted or clean of heart. Because according to God, we will be very blessed. Let's begin with the first. Blessed are the pure of heart. They shall see God. You see, one of the earliest understandings of purity of heart was connected with living authentically. What's the opposite of being pure of heart or having a purity of heart? Hypocrisy, being a hypocrite. You see, a hypocrite emphasizes their outer appearances opposed to the reality of who we really are. That's being a hypocrite. It's like putting on a mask. Deep down, no one likes a hypocrite or wants to be a hypocrite. I remember a priest friend of mine was speaking with someone and met them in encounter, and they were like, well, I don't go to church because I don't want to be like one of those hypocrites. And he said, well, there's always room for one more. And the reality is this. I mean, in some element, we all fall short in some way. It's one thing to fall short. It's another thing to fall short and to keep trying. That's the difference. That's what it means to be growing in virtue and grace. You see, when we read the scriptures, Jesus had a lot of choice words for the Pharisees who were hypocrites. Do you remember the passage? When you pray, when you fast, when you give alms, don't do it for show. Don't do it for appearances, because you've already received your reward. Ultimately, you and I are called to do everything for God and not for show. The problem was that people saw them praying or saw them helping out the poor or saw them or knew that they were fasting. That's not the problem. The problem Jesus indicates is literally they did it to be seen. That's not why you pray. It's not why you care for the poor. It's not why you fast, so others may see you. Where's the love in that? In fact, if anything, it distorts something beautiful and defiles it and makes it all about us and not about the love of God or ultimately a love of our neighbor. You know the famous passage from 1 Samuel? For the Lord does not see as man sees. Man sees the appearance, but the Lord sees the heart. You see, blessed are the pure of heart. It's basically a call to authentic living. Have you ever heard the phrase, character is what we're doing when no one is watching? Character is what we're doing when no one's watching. In our social media culture, we have to be very careful being too caught up with how we look to others out there, the perfect selfie, the perfect family, the perfect life. Keep up appearances. Isn't that what matters? No, it doesn't. That isn't being pure of heart. Now, I'm not saying people can't post lovely pictures of their family and events or themselves, but whatever happened to the enjoying the moment, being together with those that we love? This emphasis on outer appearances can easily affect our heart. It keeps us from seeing God clearly. It keeps us from living authentically and even seeing others as we're called to see them. Recently, I rewatched one of my favorite movies. It's called Quiz Show. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a great movie. It was produced by Robert Redford and it's based on the scandals with a quiz show back when TV first came out, where basically the outcome was rigged. You see, the producers wanted to get high ratings, so they ended up finding popular contestants and gave them the answers. And they made oodles of money from it. And there was this famous person, Charles Van Buren, who came from this aristocratic family of high integrity, and he gets caught up in the scandal as he makes compromises little by little. Even as the movie goes on, he's more and more convinced of his goodness as, look how I am, look how people see me on TV. He even tells his dad, who doesn't own a TV, Dad, have you seen me on TV yet? Now his dad is this prominent professor at Columbia where integrity mattered, and he's like, as if like, only if you see me on TV, then you'll really appreciate me. Only it would be knowing that he's actually compromising himself in order to get this fame and glory. As the federal investigators are catching on this deception and scam, there's this very climactic scene when Charles is speaking with the investigator off record. And this is what he says. He said, if someone offered you the answers to questions on a quiz show, and it would make you famous and wealthy beyond belief, would you take it? I was like, no. No, if someone said, if you do this, I'll give you the answers, you could be on the cover of Time magazine and have thousands of fans, would you do it? The detective said, no. And Van Buren says, and I would. And that's the difference between you and me. You see, it comes back to the eternal question. Would you sell your soul to look good in the eyes of everyone, even though you are corrupted inside? Blessed are the pure of heart. God isn't impressed with the outer appearances. Man sees outer appearances, but the Lord sees the heart. And as Francis of Assisi says, what a person is before God, he is, or we are, and nothing more. In other words, we're only who we are as we are before God, nothing else, nothing more. Second, purity of heart also means blessed are the single-hearted. What does it mean to be single-hearted? It means God first over everything. Yeah, we should love our family. We should love our spouse, our children, and our jobs. Yet God still, first and foremost, must have first place. You can tell the people there's something different about a person who puts God in first place. There's a primacy of God in their mind and their heart. You know who the models of this are? It's the saints. Just listen to the stories of the saints. Do you know the story of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, an Italian young man known for his love of God and his zeal for the poor? He was a man full of life. He loved hiking and mountain climbing. He loved Italian politics. And his Catholic faith wasn't just a hobby. It was the lens for his life. Every day he would rise early and climb up a hill to go to daily mass. He would make rosaries for his friends and invite others to pray for him. He would organize these outdoor adventures. And you know what one of his famous mottos was? To the heights, only its meaning was much more richer than kind of a natural understanding of it. When he said to the heights, it meant to the heights with your aspirations, to the heights with your endeavors, in your faith and your love, to the heights. Though he was from a wealthy family, he lived simply and served the poor heroically. It's because of literally his love for God and that I do everything, he said. Blessed are the pure of heart. Or what about the story of St. Gianna Molla? Here she was a wife, a doctor, a pediatrician, a mother. She loved to go hiking and also go to the opera, very involved in her faith. And she had a great particular care for the poor. She was the one who, when she was pregnant with her fourth child, she said, try to save both of us, but save the child first. She ended up losing her life after that. She literally laid down her life for her daughter, that her daughter may live. You see, it was her faith that defined her life. It really wasn't a question. Faith and love for God expanded her heart. It taught her to be selfless, seeing everything with a supernatural perspective. She, of all people, lived the verse from Proverbs, charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting. But the woman who fears the Lord should be praised. Blessed are the single-hearted. Father Cantalamessa says, actually built in to the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father that we pray all the time, it actually teaches us to be single-hearted in the first three things we ask of the Lord. What are the intentions? Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Let's unpack that. These simple but profound prayers purify the desires of our heart. Notice that our life, it's not about us, but it's about honoring his name above all. Hallowed be thy name. And in the end, the single-hearted desire, not what I want, but thy kingdom come and thy will be done. This prayer, it's a posture of purifying all of our desires. However long or short we live, that's my one desire. I desire to be single-hearted. So let's review. Blessed are the pure of heart. God's not impressed by appearances. It's not about how others see us, but how God sees us through his eyes. Blessed are the single-hearted, means living for God above all. Lord, purify our hearts. Finally, blessed are the clean of heart. I don't have to quote a list of statistics to know that the culture of impurity, pornography, exploitation is just so widespread. I read a statistic one time that said every time someone looks at pornography, they're usually looking at 20 or 30 people each time. How would that help anybody to ever be in relationship with the opposite sex? Talk about using people as objects. Things like pornography turn people into objects to be used or into impersonal commodities. And that doesn't include the many people who are forced into this depraved lifestyle because of human trafficking or drugs or ultimately abuse. But Jesus says differently. Blessed are the clean-hearted. As a former university chaplain, the effect of things like pornography just so widespread, how it just destroyed relationships and how it affected just the minds of young people. A year or so ago, I was speaking with the principal of someone who was at a Catholic all-boys high school. It was in another state. And they gave, everyone had mandatory iPads. And I don't know how they discovered this, but they realized most or 70% of all the boys were looking at 2 or 3 hours of pornography a day. Are you kidding me? How can they even have a regular relationship with women when that's forming them, especially as young people? You see, lust has a way of making someone a slave to themselves, ultimately a slave to the passions. How can you see God in that with that? See, lust is selfish. It's self-indulgent. It dulls one's spiritual senses. It's hard to see God clearly if someone's stuck in the muck or bombarded with the memories of lustful images in one's head. Lust can frankly even overflow into marriage, where when sexual intimacy intentionally excludes an openness to life, things like contraception, it separates the two things that were always meant to be together. Intimacy in the union of spouses and an openness to life. You see, marital intimacy was made for love and an openness to life. While couples can come together at times when the woman's not fertile through methods like natural family planning, couples can never purely come together with the expressed intention to exclude life in that most intimate act. It's really part of our timeless teachings, timeless truths of our faith for 2,000 years. Yet we also have how beautiful the sacrament of reconciliation has been the saving grace for many people, for those desiring to be clean of heart. It first and foremost has to begin with that commitment to being clean of heart. There's no flirting with things that can defile the senses, the mind, or ultimately the heart. Do you remember the words of St. Paul in his first letter to the Corinthians? Make no mistake about it. No fornicator, no adulterer, an affected idolater has any inheritance in my kingdom. Let no one deceive you with their worthless arguments. These sins bring down upon the wrath of God. Sins of the flesh are not something that anyone can ignore or pretend, no big deal. Do you remember the case at Our Lady of Fatima when she appeared to 3 young children and she said, pray for the world, pray for the conversion of the world. And this is in 1913. And during the time as she's telling them, pray for the conversion of the world, they literally, in one of the encounters, they see a vision of hell. And she says, more people go to hell for the sins of the flesh because they're unrepentant. Will you pray for them? And that's where we got that prayer that's prayed at the end of the decade of the Rosary. How beautiful it is, this call to conversion, this call to this clean of heart that everyone's called to have. How beautiful it is that part of the road to freedom and self-control includes daily prayer, having some form of self-denial, even fasting at times. Some people, they can think they can live differently without this. Actually, that's pretty necessity to say no to ourselves so we can have the freedom to always say yes to God. What does St. Augustine says? He has a famous quote. He said, control your passions or your passions will control you. Unless that person learns to say no to themselves, their passions, their desire, their whims, they'll be consumed with them. It literally makes a person like an animal, not rational, and just kind of caught up in that kind of in slavery to the senses. St. Peter talks about it in his second letter where he talks about like people become literally like creatures of instinct, born to be caught and destroyed, and like animals, they too will perish. It's very strong language that he used. He says they lived in a depraved way, they prey on the unstable and the young. It's like that can't be part, ultimately, of someone who's clean of heart. So in summary, blessed are the pure of heart. God's not impressed by appearances, only truly how we live. Blessed are the single-hearted. We must live for God above all. Our faith shapes everything in how we see everything and everybody. And blessed are the clean of heart. What a great clarity with a chaste heart, a chaste mind. How beautiful it is that we're able to see God clearly and frankly one another clearly as well. May we truly live this beatitude and see God now and fully face to face in eternity. May God bless you.
I've run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with